All right, we got video game genres are kind of trash. Oh boy.
Video game genres are really weird and dumb and
Yeah.
stupid, and I hate them. And I made this video to rant about it.
Oh boy, a rant. I love those.
Genres as a concept have existed in every medium that has ever existed
Genre.
since basically the dawn of time. After all, us small-brained mammals love to put stuff into boxes. Types of food, types of rocks, types of people.
I love
Really, we
boxes.
love nothing more than fitting a bunch of things into a bunch of different categories.
I love boxes.
Well, almost as much as we love arguing over which is our favorite and then killing each other over it. But
Yes.
despite acting as a pretty handy excuse for causing every terrible event in human history, categories can also be a good thing. They act as a shorthand for descriptions. They let us communicate complex ideas in simpler ways without just starting from scratch every time. So instead of telling a friend this game has a leveling system and randomized loot, plus it lets you shoot people from a first-person perspective,
No. When I try to sell my friend on some game, I just say, hey, this game is like this other game, but with this and this. That's literally how I describe games to my friends.
you could just say it's an FPS with RPG elements,
Yeah.
and they'll know what you mean. Once a set of rules gets established and given a name, it's much easier to just refer to that instead and throw everything into that box.
Yeah.
But what happens when that box fills up with too much stuff, or the rules we use for it become too broad? I mean, can you even tell me what makes something an RPG? If it's just a game where you play a role,
RPG? Traditionally, it has that holy trinity bullshit of tank, healer, DPS, or there's some sort of mechanic where there's numbers popping up whenever you do damage, and there's like some sort of gear system where you can get better gear, and that's the basic gist of it, more or less.
it would apply to literally every game ever made.
Yeah.
Okay, so what if we close the definition to something specific, like any game with stats you can level up, weapons and armor you can loot, choices you can make in the story, and different playable characters and side quests, and maybe an open world? That seems a bit better, but it also means the most successful RPG ever made is Grand Theft Auto 5.
Oh, that's true. I can't believe that GTA is still hanging around. Probably the two most, the two games that have hung around the longest in recent memory have absolutely, it has to be GTA 5 and Skyrim. All right. Those games have so much community support. It's ridiculous. All right. GTA 5 is on its like seventh or eighth installment or version of the game. It's on smart fridges now. It's on smart dishwashers. You can play it on your iPad. Same thing with Skyrim. Skyrim has came out for every console since, was it the 360 or the one after the 360? One of those. It has been hanging around forever.
You see, base genres on their own are basically useless, unless they're literally just technical descriptions like third-person shooter. So the answer
Yeah.
to what happens when the box gets full is we just make another smaller box.
Looty shooty.
And we call those subgenres. A game is no longer just an RPG, now it's an isometric narrative-driven CRPG, or a turn-based JRPG with life sim elements. And that helps a lot with building an idea of the game up in someone's mind.
Bro, it's literally, but like those games, well, I didn't even know that was a scene. Those games were so complicated in their title. I was like, I'm just going to stay away from that. Yeah.
Though it often still isn't enough. I mean, what makes something a JRPG? The name would imply it's any RPG made in Japan, and yet I've never heard anyone use it to describe Dark Souls.
Like, to me, when someone says JRPG, it's like, it's some sort of anime looking thing, and it's some sort of turn-based thing. That's literally the only two things that jump out at me.
Don't lie to me. We all know when I say those four letters, you're thinking about Chrono Trigger or Persona or something.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's not like the style of game we consider a JRPG is limited to being made in Japan. They're not region locked or something. You know, like to make one, you'd need to
Yeah, remember Mario RPG? There you go.
connect to a server in another country with like some sort of service, like a virtual private network. This video is sponsored by Surfshark VPN. Surfshark is an app and browser
Good
extension that
segue.
keeps you safe online by masking your IP address and letting you virtually travel the world. With just a click of a button or tap of a finger, you can connect to over 3,000 servers in 100 countries, meaning you get access to location-restricted content while staying safe online thanks to military-grade encryption. As someone who lives in Canada, I know very well that places like Netflix love to lock certain shows to American servers. But with Surfshark VPN, all I have to do is turn it on and connect to those servers. And now I can watch whatever I want. I also love the peace of mind that I get browsing the internet, knowing that even if I'm on public Wi-Fi or I'm traveling abroad, nobody can see.
Hey, so is this how all those FPS cheaters win or get easy lobbies by just changing their like IP or their region or whatever? That's how they get all those matches, just by getting a Surfshark sponsorship. God dang. I've been missing out on all the easy lobbies, man. I could have had 1 million subscribers if I just got some Surfshark shit. Dang.
What I'm browsing, what I've downloaded, or any of my embarrassing Google searches. And get this, one subscription lets you connect as many devices as you want, meaning you can go ahead and share Surfshark with all your friends to let them enjoy all these great features too. So why don't
Well, in the first place, I would need to have that many friends.
you go ahead and protect yourself today. Get Surfshark VPN at surfshark.deals/Lextorious and enter promo code Lextorious for an exclusive offer and 3 months extra for free. Thank you to Surfshark VPN for sponsoring this video. Back to whatever I was talking about. Okay, so
Nice.
describing a game with just genres and subgenres is still very hard and doesn't often paint that clear a picture of exactly what the game is.
Yeah.
So why don't we do something?
Bro, it's harder even in the shooting genre. I know you didn't get there yet. Maybe, oh shit, maybe you don't even get that. Maybe you don't even have a shooting chapter, but there are so many different shooters. FPS, third person. I mean, there's pretty much only two, but there's even within the shooter genre, you can divide it up in a bunch of different ways, man. It's crazy.
Much easier and just say it's like Dark Souls. Oh,
Yeah.
it's like Dark Souls. Well, I played Dark Souls and I understand the stamina mechanics and bonfire system, so now I have a very clear idea of what this game is like. And you're telling me there's a bunch of games that are all very similar to Dark Souls and share those mechanics? Well, why don't we put them all in a box and call that box Souls-like?
Yeah.
How convenient. I'm sure that won't cause any problems. Now, with this type of game,
I am slowly getting into the Souls-like genres, very slowly, because I am a bitch and I do not feel like ramming my head into my keyboard 500 times just to kill a boss. So I'm dipping my feet in. I did it with what do you call it? Armored Core 6, doing it with Elden Ring now, and I'm starting to like it a little bit more. Hopefully I warm up to it because I know it's a very good genre, and I didn't know there were so many Souls-like games. It's actually crazy.
which I've dubbed the like genre, there's a sort of life cycle that they all go through, where initially a game comes out that is so influential or unique that it sets a standard. Think of something like Doom, which was pretty much in a league of its own when it comes to shooters. It wasn't the first first-person shooter, it wasn't even the first popular one, but it was so popular that years afterward, any game with gameplay even somewhat similar was dubbed a Doom clone.
Yeah. I wasn't there for Doom, the Doom era, but I wish I was, because me just recently finding PC gaming and getting into like mouse and keyboard gameplay is very fun and eye-opening, because back in the day I used to be a console boy and I thought I was hot shit with anytime I played like a shooter, and I would drop like, I don't know, 60, 70 kills or whatever. And I had like a two and change KD on some of these COD games or whatever. And I thought I was good, but then I don't know, something just happened and I fell out of it. And, you know, years later, I built my own PC, and now it's just, I look back at all the old PC games that some people grew up with, being like an early adopter of PC gaming. And it's like, oh, wow, this is where that came from. Oh, that's pretty cool. But I mean, to each his own, I guess.
until FPS finally became a common term. Though this is mostly because a lot of games did come out that just tried to be one-for-one copies of Doom. Clone is a bit of a harsh description for any game not trying to be one though, which is why terms like Zelda clone or GTA clone never really stuck around to become full-fledged genres. Souls-like, however, stuck hard, because on top of your typical Lords of the Fallen value brand ripoffs, you also had games that took certain elements or worked off the formula to make something new. They were like Dark Souls, but not trying to be Dark Souls. So the defining traits of the genre had to open up from one-to-one clone to anything with the classic dodge roll, stamina, bonfire, lose souls when you die type stuff. But then, as the genre grows, it starts incorporating more and more games that do things differently. And some of them don't use dodge rolls at all, or completely change up the checkpoint system.
Yeah.
This category that
Bro, before Souls, or what do you call it? Dark Souls and Demon Souls and all that shit, there were a ton of games that could have fallen into that category before Dark Souls came out. I remember games like Unamusha. It was very like reaction heavy, and you had very unique bosses, and then you had like cannon fodder enemies, and there was another. You had Ninja Gaiden, all right, and you had what do you call it? Devil May Cry. I mean, those are more like hack and slashy. But Ninja Gaiden, like the early Ninja Gaidens, those were hard as hell, man. And what else did you have? You had Tenchu, Wrath of Heaven. I think you could have put. I mean, that was more like stealth, like ninja gameplay, more so. But I could kind of put it in there, but not really. But kinda. What else? There was another samurai game where it was like very reaction heavy. I forgot what the heck it was called. It was on like PS2 or PS3. I forget, but I remember I couldn't beat that game because I was low kid and I was retarded, and I did not have the, you know, the mental adaptation going for me, and it was just a slog. You know, when you're a little kid, you got like a zillion. You have so much time to invest into a game. You have the patience to, you know, beat your head into your controller so many times. But for some reason, I couldn't get it on this one game. I really wish I remember the name. Maybe it'll come to me.
It was created entirely as a shorthand to refer to one specific style of game, now has many games in it that don't look anything like the Souls series. To refer to them as Souls-likes kind of defeats the point of being that specific to begin with.
Yeah.
But if they're not Souls-likes, we don't have any term we can use to describe them. This box is overflowing with stuff again, and nobody has found another one to put the excess in. Well, until you get to roguelites. No, not roguelikes, the genre defined by games that are like Rogue. Roguelites, the genre defined by games that are kinda like Rogue, but not enough like Rogue to be called a roguelike. But they're still enough like Rogue that we can categorize them by how like Rogue they are. You just can't call them roguelikes because those games are more like Rogue than these games that are like Rogue or like Rogue.
Bro, gamers are ridiculous with the naming of genres. Like, when was the first actual time that those two like words, phrases popped up on the internet for someone to just coin the term roguelike and roguelite? Like, when did that happen, and why would they do this? That's my question.
Which is why some people also call them roguelike likes.
Roguelike like.
Do you see how stupid that sounds?
Yeah.
It's an attempt to solve
stupid.
the problem of specificity, but in the worst way possible. In a way that is way more confusing, to the point where most people just ignore this distinction and call everything a roguelike anyways. And for what? The most concrete definition we have of the difference between light and like is something called the Berlin interpretation, which says if a game isn't grid-based, turn-based, and non-modal, among a dozen other factors, it's not a true roguelike. Now I'll give you a second to try and think of how many grid-based, turn-based, non-modal games have come out in the—
Oh, what's that alien game with like the grid thing? Bro, I hate that game because I tried it and then I got close to an alien one time and it was like 90% hit chance and then I missed. So I was like, this game's fucking stupid. I'm uninstalling. What the hell was that game called?
in the last year or so. Oh, what? You can't think of anything? You're telling me games with fucking ASCII art aren't popping off right now?
Oh, that's what you meant.
That's weird. I understand the thought process behind roguelite, since
That's
it's
what
the
you
same
meant by
thought
grid.
process I brought up with Souls-like. If you specifically enjoy games that are actually like Rogue and you go and try to search for them, you're gonna get bombarded with a bunch of Binding of Isaac clones more than anything. But at this point, we've clearly seen that roguelike is the more popular broad term.
Yeah.
So trying to wrench it away from games like Hades to apply it to like 20 games that came out in the 90s is just fighting a losing battle. Sorry, that's just how language works. If you want to come up with some term for your classic roguelikes, just call them something like classic roguelikes or true roguelikes, or, and this is a wild idea, just say these games are like Rogue. So anyway, Super Metroid in 1994 and Castlevania Symphony of the Night in 1997 were pivotal and iconic games.
Metroidvanias.
In much the same way Doom and Dark Souls were. So like Doom, the elements they used became genres, and like Souls-like and roguelikes, their genres expanded over time as more games fit into them. And many years later, we have the abomination that is Metroidvania.
Oh,
I mean, the name itself comes from combining Castlevania and Metroid, and yet the original Castlevania isn't a Metroidvania.
Really?
Which is confusing. The genre is defined by non-linear interconnected level design and progression gated by the use of certain unlockable abilities, which isn't a thing in Castlevania.
Bro, I'm surprised with the amount of Mega Mans that were out at this time. People couldn't figure out a way to stick in like Mega Man. Like, because I think Mega Man could have fallen into this category, but I don't know if it, like the OG Mega Mans came out around this time. So maybe you could have made the term, what was it, Metroidvania, like Mega Metroidvania, or Metroidvania Man.
1. That game is very linear. Those elements would only be hinted at in Castlevania 2, and even then the genre-defining parts were all from Symphony of the Night, which was 10 games later. More specifically from the mind of Koji Igarashi, who took inspiration from the early Zelda games. Leave it up to him and the genre would be called Zeldavania because he wasn't even aware of the connection to Metroid until people pointed it out to him.
Oh, dang.
But obviously the genre can't be called Zeldavania because part of the Metroidvania style is that 2D platformer level design that was perfected by Super Metroid. Games like Hollow Knight and Ori and the Blind Forest clearly take inspiration from that. Yet, there are so many games described as Metroidvania that aren't 2D platformers.
Really?
Like, you know, Metroid Prime, which, fun fact, some people might not even describe as a Metroidvania because on top of the whole 2D platformer thing, a key part of the genre is the RPG elements that Symphony of the Night introduced. You heard me right. Not only is Castlevania not a Metroidvania, to some people, neither are most Metroid games. In order to confuse things even further, I've seen people come up with things like Metroid-like, Metroidvania-like,
No.
Castleroid.
Castleroid. Bro, people are so desperate to coin the next big gaming term so they can get some sort of online credit for it. It's like, I made this term. This is what it means. Guys, listen to me. I am the true game knowledge holder, all right? It's like, what are you doing?
And even Classicvania to specifically refer to all the pre-Symphony of the Night titles.
Bro, Castleroid is literally the best one. Castleroids. Bro, this game's like a Castleroid. Like, what? Is that like a super steroid? No, it's Castleroid.
Which, at that point, what are we even doing here? If you need to come up with a whole genre to encompass less than a dozen games, you have a problem. Just call them Castlevania games that came out before Symphony of the Night. We don't need a catchy name and category for them. Really, the Metroidvania genre is such a weird, backwards case study compared to roguelike or Souls-like. Because unlike those genres, or pretty much anything else, it is entirely derived from two separate games that only share a couple things in common, and are part of different franchises that don't even fit into the genre named after them. You can't measure something as a Metroidvania based on how close it is to Castlevania or Metroid, because even Castlevania and Metroid aren't 100% Metroidvania. We're basing the genre off a weird hypothetical game that doesn't even exist. And all because Metroidvania is way more fun to say than Symphony of the Night-like. Though I guess I should be thankful we're not in the timeline where Castleroid took off.
Bro,
Jesus.
Can you imagine a world where Castleroid is an actual thing? Like back in the day when I went to EB Games, I couldn't imagine them saying the word, "Oh yeah, this game's awesome. It's a Castleroid." Bro, my mom would never have gotten a lot of games then. Castleroid? What? Oh no. You can't be playing these type of games. All right?
Jesus Christ, I think I would have given up gaming altogether if I had to hear people say that unironically. Okay, but surely there's an example of a like genre that does things right. Right?
Maybe.
Well...
No shot.
No. But hey, did you know that the adventure game is actually a like genre? And no, it's not a genre built around the idea of adventure, because that would apply to like every game ever. Actually, the adventure in adventure game specifically refers to 1976's Colossal Cave Adventure, a
Really?
text-based, exploration-focused puzzle game. So technically, the more apt term to use for the genre would be adventure-like.
Bro, I thought this thing was like, what was this called? Like a mud? Or something? Like the computer version of D&D before the book version of D&D came out? Or some shit? I thought that's what this was. I didn't know that this was categorized as adventure or adventure-like. Bro, if you say like, I was gonna say action adventure, and that would have been anything like kind of open world, like Skyrim or Zelda. I'd be like, oh yeah, action adventure. Oh.
Since it works off a similar premise to Souls-like and roguelike. Stuff like King's Quest, Monkey Island, and Myst are all adventure games. Uncharted and Tomb Raider are not, because the key tenets of the genre involve puzzle solving, exploration, narrative, a hero protagonist, and collection of objects.
Oh.
Wouldn't that make Uncharted an adventure? Fuck. Okay, well, adventure games were originally all of that, but more focused on the text-based or point-and-click type of gameplay. A hallmark of the genre is basically no action or combat whatsoever. Plus, narrative in this context is more meant to be about piecing together the story through the gameplay. Like all the other like genres, they just had to expand the definition to the point that it basically became meaningless. Unlike roguelike and Souls-like though, adventure games didn't have a major resurgence or rebranding.
Okay, so essentially, this kind of seems like if you were to read a book and the book had like some sort of 16-bit pixels or 32, I don't know, whatever this is, and you're just going off of that, it's a 16-bit book reading. That's what it is, and you get to control the main character in some way, shape, or form. But I would imagine there's not a lot of exploring going around. That, you know, when the dev makes this type of game, there's an intended path for you to go through. You can't really go off and do your own thing.
They didn't try to call every game that came after diet adventure games or something stupid. Mostly because adventure games are dead, with one of the death knells being in 1998 when popular game developer Sierra was sold to Cuck International. Or, well, the original text-based game mostly died out in the West. In Japan, however, adventure games have been and still are incredibly popular, because guess what? All visual novels are adventure games. I don't even care about nuance here. They're the same thing. Try to leave a comment about it. I dare you. Everything from Kojima's Snatcher and Police Knots to whatever dating sim you can scrape.
Oh, so now that you throw in dating sims, then it kind of makes more sense. The only reason I know this is because of Newgrounds games back in the day.
Off the bottom of the new releases tab on Steam, these games are all very clearly in the same category, and they make up the majority of games made in Japan. Whereas in the West, the tradition of exploration and puzzle-focused narrative games also transformed into things like the Stanley Parable and The Witness, alongside Heavy Rain and Telltale games. And oh my god, I haven't even brought up walking sims yet. Oh Jesus
God.
Christ. Okay, basically games like Gone Home, Dear Esther, Stanley Parable, etc. are direct continuations of the adventure game, where the focus is on exploration and puzzles with little to no action or combat. Specifically, these newer games didn't even have failure states or game overs, which for some reason made a large portion of the internet so angry they invented the term walking simulator to insult them.
Bro, before, what was that one game with Norman Reedus? And yeah, that was the first time I heard of walking sim. I had no idea that was an actual genre.
Because if you can't shoot a Nazi or a demon or a terrorist, then it must not even really be a video game. Just ignore the fact that the term grew in popularity at the exact same time as Gamergate and was famously used to attack a game about a queer person. That is completely unrelated. Probably. And since 2014, the term walking sim has been used much more positively to describe these games, in a sort of ironic reclaiming of the word. Though people have tried to come up with alternatives like narrative game or empathy game, which we all know won't stick because gamers don't know what that is.
Oh yeah, bro, if you were to tell me, like if I'm looking on Steam and I see the little tags on the side and I were to see those things like narrative game or empathy game, it's like, oh, this is probably not a lot of action or combat or shooting or sword slicing, hack and slashing, styling, triple S, Devil May Cry, shoot 'em up type games. All right. Now, these games aren't bad. They're just, you have to be in the right mood to play these type of games. And I don't know, I just never caught on to some of those type of games. I don't know, maybe in the future I can give them a shot.
Anyways, over 4 decades after the original Colossal Cave Adventure, the adventure game genre is a rare case of a category being built on one specific type of game and actually having the freedom to branch off into multiple other distinct categories. Point and clicks, visual novels, walking sims, you name it. They managed to separate themselves and become their own thing, instead of being limited to the framework of the original game. Which is even funnier to think about when you know that Colossal Cave Adventure is cited as the main inspiration for Rogue. That's
really?
Right. If you want to be pedantic about genre names, every roguelike is technically just an adventure light.
Oh,
Fuck
shit.
you. Now, don't get me wrong, adventure games have their purist fans, just like everything else. I'm sure there are people...
I think it being like a purist fan is like completely ridiculous. And this is like, even me, like I play a Kovacs a lot of the time, which is just clicking dots and cylinders, and you know, it has like a tremendous amount of transferability between FPS games. I wouldn't say I'm a purist even, because I like other games too, and to say that like I'm a purist of XYZ game genre, it's like, it's ridiculous. This is just like some people trying to gatekeep their genre from people entering and enjoying that game.
Out there saying if a game isn't text-based, it's dead to them. But I'd like to think that it's at least a good starting point for what can happen when we don't limit ourselves to these arbitrarily strict rules and naming conventions. Remember, all these words are made up. That's how words work. And we made them up to help us communicate better. The whole reason we invented these definitions and put all these games into boxes is just to make our lives easier when we talk about them. But what should be obvious, however many minutes into this video we are, is that when you care too much about the words and definitions, you just end up making things more confusing.
Oh yeah.
If so,
bro, like, I don't know, maybe this is like a me just getting older thing, but I just care so much less about the actual genre it's under. As long as the game just plays good for what it is, that's all I care about. If it's a walking sim, try to be the best damn walking sim. If it's a sympathy like, or whatever you said, just try to be the best damn sympathy like. All right. If you're trying to be the best, if you're making an FPS game, try to be the best FPS game. All right. That's all, man.
Someone wants to call a game a roguelike because it has permadeath and randomized levels. Who cares that it's not turn-based?
Yeah.
You and I both know what they're talking about. If you want to say that Dark Souls isn't a JRPG, even though it's made in Japan, yeah, that makes sense. It's kind of weird to split games into country of origin anyways.
Yeah.
You know what Japan calls RPGs made in America? Yoge Kusige, which means shitty Western game.
Oh, shit. Dang, I'm gonna start using this too. I've been using this for the last couple years, man. Except I just say shitty American game or just shitty game.
Let game genres be fluid. Let them adapt and change with the times, or even straight up die if they need to. As long as they make things easier to talk about, they've done their job. If they're no longer doing that job, it's time to change things. Stop missing the forest for the suspiciously rogue-shaped trees. Stop trying to come up with more rules and regulations and exceptions to these completely made-up terms.
Yeah.
Start making up new ones.
Yeah, like start blending the little genres and come up with games for like the in-between areas, you know? That seems way more attractive to me than trying to come up and innovate in one category in and of itself. Try to like add maybe 2 or 3 categories and come up with like a new thing. I mean, granted, I understand it's like a lot of games have already been like made and everything is been done for, much the same way that the music industry, like every song has ever been made, right? It's insanely hard to come up with a new song. And they're like, if you were to listen to one song, I guarantee you there's probably, and you're going to be able to find another song that kind of sounds like that song. All right. You can only do so much with music for it to sound unique. Eventually, shit starts sounding the same. Same thing with video games. There's only so many new things that you can make and come out with and develop before they start blending together.
Better ones. Preferably before people start unironically using the word Souls-Light, because I swear to God, if that happens, I'm gonna fucking lose it.
Now that you said it,
sucks. Video games are complicated. None of this really matters or is important. So why don't we just relax and try and be a bit more open when it comes to how we talk about this stuff? After all, genres are weird and dumb and stupid, and I would hate if they stayed that way.
Here we go.
Oh man, is that it?
Thank you so much for watching. I'm not joking when I say this video mostly just exists for me to rant. I could have dived in a lot deeper and talked about a ton more genres.
Yeah, you left out the shooty genre, bro. Where the shooty genre? I mean, you kind of mentioned Doom Clone, but yeah, that was like the origin of like all the shooters, but you could have gone deeper. We could have gone deeper, my friend.
But I figured people much smarter than me have already had all the serious discussions about this topic.
Really?
I just wanted to make my little jokes and try and wrap it all up in the end. Leave me a hate comment if you don't think I did a good job. If you like this video though, why don't you comment on a genre that I didn't talk about? One that you don't like, maybe one that you do. My personal favorite is Strand Game. Because, what even was that? Has anyone figured out what Kojima meant by that?
Oh, wait. Oh, that's the name of the game. The Death Stranding. That was the walking sim, but it was kind of walking sim, but it was more like UPS sim. And eventually you get like motorcycles and walk faster and other shit. But yeah, I get what you meant. But I don't know what he meant. But whatever. Yeah, I wish you would have like went more into the shooting, because that is an umbrella. That is a very wide umbrella.
Because I haven't. Oh, and while I'm at it, this entire conversation is not unique to video games at all. Go ask a metalhead how people determine what is or isn't metal, or...
Oh, geez, you actually right with like in the music vein again. Like just dipping into one music genre, there's like 50 different other sub-genres underneath it. And they all try to gatekeep each other by, it's like, oh, only this melody and these notes and this instrument sounds like this and this tempo and this blah, blah, blah. It's ridiculous. I actually wonder if this is probably like a common thing in every entertainment industry, like even books, even movies, even shows, and so on and so forth. It has to be. It's no way it's only just video games.
An anime fan what defines an isekai, and
oh, Jesus.
You'll get a rant about as long as this video. This is something that applies to every facet of human language. I just wanted to talk about video games because that's what I know.
Yeah.
Anyways, if you want to get your name in the credits like all these cool people, go check out my Patreon, linked in the description. If you want to hang out and chat with more people in the community, go join our public Discord server, the Gray T-Shirt Club, also linked down below. Thanks again to Surfshark VPN for sponsoring this video. I'll see you next time.
What a goat. Oh, wait, go back.
So, you
no,
want your
go back. You
video game genres are...
Stop it. Okay. Bro, that was a good ass video. Like, what is this? Defining a game genre is the Dark Souls of categorizing. Yeah, that's pretty true. I don't know. I mean, like you said, it's hard to develop new video games because the moment you try to actually put in a good amount of effort, you start to realize how hard it is to come out on the other side as a unique type of experience on the other side. So, I mean, I get it, kinda, but I don't really get it. But I can at least use my eyes and see, like, oh shit, there's a bunch of different kinds of these type of games. There's a bunch of different kinds of these games, and so on and so forth. So, I mean, if you, I would imagine if you were to jump inside any game under a subgenre, there's a ton of different things you could improve on in some way, shape, or form. Like I would say most games are not perfect, and you could probably add a couple more things to make them better. I just 100% guarantee that that's a possibility for most games. But I mean, what else can I say, man? That was a good ass video, and yeah, I want to see some more. So that's pretty much it, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. All right, peace.